Welcome back to the Ball Oasis show. 2 week hiatus as we were off last week. I had a little moving to do, as you can see. Third setup in the past few weeks. Sorry for that, by the way. But this should be permanent. This should be permanent for at least the next few months. So you don't have to worry about any of that. No more news. No real news that we've really seen. Once again, sound like a broken record at this point. But
Yep.
no trade news. No real free agency news as that's kind of wrapped up. Everybody kind of looking forward to the next season already. Um, as we continue this series that we started 2 weeks ago. Last time we ranked point guards, did the point guard tiers. That was a lot of fun. So we're back here today to do the shooting guard tiers.
Yep.
It's basically the same thing as last time. We have 6 tiers that we put these players on. We have the fringe starters, average starters, quality starters, the all-star caliber players, the all NBA caliber players, and the best of the best. Um, this list is going to be a little different from the last one. It's not as top heavy for me, Jacob. Does this one look a little different to you?
Yeah, it's not as like you said, top heavy. There's a lot of guys you can interchange kind of further down, but yeah, I think it's after like the second tier kind of just drops a little bit.
Yeah. Um, we had a lot of guys towards the top of that point guard tier list who are really all NBA superstar players, and I think you'll see today that the shooting guards, it kind of falls off a little bit. It's kind
Right.
of weird because in the past, shooting guard has been one of the prime positions of NBA basketball, but point guard and forwards have really taken that over. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into it, Jacob. Your tier
All right.
six. Who is on your tier six?
My tier six, I have Jordan Clarkson, Victor Oladipo, Kevin Herter, Buddy Hield, Bruce Brown, Derek White, Alex Caruso, Gary Payton, and Pat Connaughton.
Okay. Is there anybody in particular who you want to highlight off this tier?
I'm gonna say, hmm, I'll say Jordan Clarkson
Okay.
because this is like the fringe starter, I guess. Tier.
Right.
I feel like he could start on some teams. I know he's had that six-man role for a while on a few different teams, but I think if you give him the right system, play in on the right team, he could definitely start and put up good numbers.
Yeah. I would agree with you on that. I think that his 6 man role has allowed him to thrive. Running with the second option, and
Right.
I think on playoff caliber teams, I think that's probably the best fit for him. But he definitely could. He definitely could be a guy who could step in and play that role. A lot of the same guys that you have, I have on this tier. I have Pat Connaughton here. I have Gary Payton II here. I have Derek White, Alex Caruso, Gary Harris, Kevin Herter, DeAnthony Melton. I have Jordan Clarkson here, and I have Victor Oladipo here, who I want to highlight.
Yeah.
It's it's tough to put Victor Oladipo here. It's tough to rank Victor Oladipo in general because we know what he can do. We know how good he is. Just a couple of years ago, he was third team All NBA as a member of the Pacers. Then, of course, injuries come along and kind of derail him a little bit. He's getting towards 30 years old, if he isn't that already. He's lost athleticism a little bit, but it was really good to see him kind of resurge
I agree.
with the Heat last season and kind of find his niche on that team. And I think going forward that he could be an integral piece on that team, especially with them losing a guy like PJ Tucker who was integral in that rotation. Victor Oladipo could be a pinch starter. He's a pinch starter to me,
I can see that.
especially if they want to keep bringing Tyler Hero off the bench, which I think is a role that he thrives in, kind of like Jordan Clarkson, better
Hmm.
than maybe a starting role. I think Victor Oladipo could be that guy who steps in and takes starter minutes and can really put up some good production. What do you think about that?
I agree with that. Obviously the injuries kind of slowed him down a little bit, but I actually liked him when he came back, and I watched him in the playoffs. He didn't have as big as a role as he normally would in the playoffs, like on a playoff team, but he did actually. I was impressed of how he played, especially being out for so long in the playoffs.
Right. Because we had no idea what to expect. We had no idea what
Right.
to expect whenever Victor Oladipo came back because he's been gone for so long, it seems like.
Yeah.
So I think I can speak for all of us when we all say that we hope Victor Oladipo can return to just even a fraction of the past version of himself because he was great. He was really fun to watch, and he was the best player on some good Pacers playoff teams, some
Right.
teams that challenged LeBron, those Cavs teams. But yeah, those are the fringe starters. A lot of the same players, and I feel like Tier 5 will have a lot of the same players as well. Average starters, I have Buddy Hield here. I have Bruce Brown. I have KCP. I have Joe Harris. I have Bogdan Bogdanovic. I have Will Barton. I have Kevin Porter Jr. And I have Jalen Green here. And Jalen Green is the player that I want to highlight on this tier. It was tough. I kind of flip-flopped him tier 4, tier 5. I had him at tier 4 originally, but kind of last second I went back and flipped him to tier 5 just because he's young. And the start to his rookie season was really, really bad. He got off to a really bad start. But his second half of the season after the All-Star break, he was really good. And he vaulted himself up to first team all-rookie play kind of out of nowhere after that horrid start. And I think tier 5 is a good place for him to sit going into this next season. I think by the end of next season, we could potentially see him get up towards the top of this tier 4 quality starter tier, though, because he's that good. He gets buckets at a crazy pace, and he has so much potential, so much room to grow.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I think he had the worst what's it called? I forgot what it was called.
I know he was
plus minus, I think.
Yeah.
I
mean, he plays the Rockets. He can't help something.
Yeah, you can't help that. My fifth tier, my average starters, I have Kevin Porter Jr., Colin Sexton, Will Barton, Gary Harris, Joe Harris, Seth Curry, Jalen Green, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and DeAnthony Melton. And the one I'll highlight here is Seth Curry. I went back and forth on this.
Yeah.
Because I really think he can be a quality starter.
He is for me.
Yeah, I honestly, I went back and forth. I raced it a few times. Because if you look on when he was on Philly last year, he did have a big role in the starting lineup when he did start. But it's just now he's you could say third, maybe fourth option. So kind of, I don't know. He won't be used as much if he was in Portland some or Philly or anything like that. I just kind of think just being the fourth option, he's kind of taking a step back. Not like playing wise, but usage wise, he's taking a little step back. So that's kind of why I was up in the air with quality starter and average starter with him.
Yeah, I see that argument. I put him in tier 4 ultimately just because of what he provides in the postseason.
Yeah.
He is such a good cop out to have in the postseason whenever a guy like Kevin Durant gets double teamed like we've seen, and Kyrie Irving draws more attention than he normally would. Mm-hmm. Seth Curry is that guy that they can kick the ball to, and he is so reliable.
I agree.
Maybe in the regular season, it's kind of like the PJ Tucker thing, where in the regular season, his impact is just kind of meh. But once the postseason hits and you really turn up the intensity of the game that's going on, Seth Curry is one of those players who rises to the occasion. He's hitting big shots. He's been in a lot of big moments, and he's consistently on those playoff and even championship contending teams.
Right. I really wish we kept him on Philadelphia, especially in the Miami series. I'm not gonna say it would have changed the series, but it would have helped us a lot during the playoffs. I will say.
Yeah, he's a player that I miss in the black and red as well. Another player, one more player before we move on to tier 4 that you mentioned in this tier. I wanted to ask you about. It's Colin Sexton. Why is Colin Sexton in tier 5 for you?
I think the point you brought up a few episodes back about the coming off an injury.
Right.
So I was on the edge about that one too on the quality starter. I am high on him. I've liked watching him play. I think before he got hurt, he averaged 24 points a season before he got hurt before last year.
Magnificent.
But like you said before about the injuries, and it's funny I say about the injuries because I do have a player up later in my higher tiers that has been hurt, and I kind of got him high. But yeah, I'll just say the injury, like you said previously on here, the prove it year, I guess.
Right.
So that's the only reason I kind of left him down as the average starter. Um, so that's really it. Just to prove it. I really think he'll be good this year. I don't know about the level he was before he got hurt, but I see him having a good bounce back year.
Yeah, I definitely hope so.
Yeah,
And I was kind of in the same boat. I flip flopped between tier 4 and tier 5. My tier 4 is the is my biggest tier, and the top of tier 4 and the bottom of tier 4. Like there are gonna be some players on tier 4 where you're like, why are these players on the same tier? But it's quality starters,
yeah,
and you can kind of divide the top of this tier as an A tier, and then the bottom as a B tier. You can kind of sub tier it, just because I believe that there's so many quality starters at the shooting guard position, and the difference between some of these players is a little evident. But Jacob, I'm gonna let you go first. I'm gonna let you give me your tier 4. I want to see what you got.
this one you said is your biggest tier.
It's my biggest tier.
It's one of my smallest tiers, honestly.
Wow.
Like this list was, mm, yeah, I'll say one of them. This list was kind of hard for me. My quality starter tier, I had Terry Rozier, Norman Powell, Tyler Hero, R.J. Barrett, Lou Dort, Josh Hart, and Bogdan Bogdanovic.
Okay, that's very small. It's like half of what I have here.
Yeah, it was pretty like this one. Is so many players you could say quality starter, like
Yeah,
the Colin Sexton, um, so or like a Seth Curry, but it's just I guess the team they're on,
yeah,
maybe, or like the system they're in,
yeah. Maybe our outlook on what a quality starter is a little different too.
maybe.
This list is I mean this tier is very populated for me. So let's get
Okay.
into it. I'm gonna start kind of from the bottom with this one and kind of work my way to the top.
All right.
At the towards the bottom of tier 4, I have Jordan Poole, I have Tyler Hero, I have Seth Curry, I have Colin Sexton, I've got Josh Hart, Lou Dort, Norman Powell. We're getting towards the top of tier 4 now. I have Gary Trent Jr. here. I have Terry Rozier. I have Klay Thompson on this tier. And I have Desmond Bain wrapping it up.
Okay.
So
Like
that's my tier 4.
I
You
would
get
say my three, my high level and my quality. This one was a lot of erasing I had to do, like a lot
yeah,
of back and forth I had to do. Did I say Josh Hart for mine on quality starter?
you did. I believe you did.
Okay, okay, I was making sure.
Yeah. So I guess the ones that I really want to highlight are kind of towards the ones towards the bottom, the ones towards the top. I'll start at the bottom with Jordan Poole and Tyler Hero. They're guys. A lot of people are high on these guys, and rightfully so. They're guys who can score at an elite clip. It's just their consistency with me. I I'm not the biggest believer. I'm not the biggest believer in it, especially in a guy like Jordan Poole, who
Hmm.
is such a microwave. And we saw in the playoffs him have those peak moments where he's really, really good. But
Right.
we've seen those moments where he's not scoring, where he's pretty bad. And when he's not scoring the ball, he's not doing much for you on the floor. He's not really a good playmaker yet. He's not providing much defensively. But when he is scoring at that elite clip, he's elite. It's kind
Right.
of it's kind of the same thing with Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero doesn't really provide a lot of that either. I guess he's a little bit of a better playmaker than Jordan Poole is, but defensively, Tyler Hero doesn't really bring it. Um, so they're at the bottom of my tier 4. In
I,
the
I,
middle, I think that's where we had a lot of the same ones towards the middle of tier 4 for me.
yeah.
I'm gonna go to the top. I'm gonna go to the top. Klay Thompson. Let's address Klay Thompson.
Hmm.
Klay Thompson is kind of the same as those guys I just mentioned at this point. He just is. And we've seen Klay Thompson be a guy who has locked down on the defensive end in the past, and he still showed flashes of great help defense in the playoffs, and even some instances of good on-ball defense. But I think it's fading. I think it's fading,
I can
and
see
I
that.
think at this point he's not an all-star caliber player anymore. Just
Really.
kind of because of the firepower on his team around him now.
Okay.
And that's really all I've got to say. I'm just gonna keep that simple. I don't want to overstate anything here or overthink it because I really wanted to put Klay Thompson tier 3 because I know how good he's been, but he's just fading. He's just fading.
Okay.
Are there any objections that you had with mine?
No, I agree. Um, the Jordan Poole, I'll get to that in my next tier because he's in my next tier up, my high level tier.
Interesting.
I'll get to that. Yeah, it'd be interesting to say.
Yeah. One more player I want to bring up before we move on. Desmond Bain. Desmond Bain,
Yeah.
super efficient, a great scorer. He's a guy who can, lock up on the defensive end. He's a quality starter, though. He's not an all-star caliber player yet. He's young.
Mm-hmm.
He could be, especially if those Grizzlies teams stay up around the 1-2 seed. I think he could snag one year. Desmond Bain is at the top of my quality starters pool.
Okay, I can see that. He was at my high level, and the reason, it was hard. My high level and quality starter, it was hard. I had to go back, like the Klay Thompson thing. I went back earlier today and looked up some stats in the playoffs because he played the end of the regular season last year. I think it was like 20 games, 10,
Right.
wasn't many. So I kind of went to the playoffs, and you're right. He may not be at the All Star level. He might be still close, but
Yeah, he's at the top of my tier 4. He's at the top.
yeah. So it's really close. It's just from what I've seen, like what I saw in playoffs, he did hit big shots, played some pretty good defense, hit the shots when you needed the shots. So that might be why I kind of kept him up there, just from watching him play last year in the playoffs.
That's valid. That's a valid point.
Yeah.
On to tier 3. You say you still got a lot of guys left. At this point, I'm just gonna let you and the people know I only have 8 players left at this point. It gets slim for me at the top. So
From tier 3 to tier 1,
yeah,
I have 11, so it's close.
okay, that's not as big as a margin as I thought it would be.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and give my tier 3. I have R.J. Barrett here. I have C.J. McCollum here. I have Anthony Edwards on this tier. I have Zach LaVine. And you might not like this last one, but I have James Harden on this tier. I have James Harden on just the all-star caliber tier. And I know that you and a lot of other people that I've seen have been pushing this campaign. James Harden could potentially have an MVP caliber season next year. I'll let you speak more on that whenever you bring him up. But he's here for me just because of kind of the same thing I said with Klay Thompson. The firepower on his team. His team is loaded. The Sixers are loaded with talent at this point.
Right.
And he's old. We saw him in the playoffs last season. I hate to say it, Jacob, but it didn't look good. It didn't look good. I'm not gonna say he's fading yet, like I said with Klay Thompson, but
yeah, I'll talk more about it when I get to it. But I will say that I think it was game 4, I think. I think he had 31 against Miami.
He did play a really good game that game.
That game, yeah, especially the fourth quarter. I want to say he had, I know, over 10, I think, in the fourth. I can't remember how many it was. I'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah, he didn't leave a good taste in our mouths though after that last game where he went
really
0 points in the second half of the closeout game.
Really glad we didn't give him the max this summer. Really glad.
You're tier 3.
I see it coming though.
Yeah.
Tier 3. All right, this first player, like I said, I'll say Klay Thompson. I still think he could be an all-star level, maybe not all-star because, yeah, like you said, the fading part. So I got Klay Thompson, Desmond Bain, Jordan Poole, and Gary Trent Jr. And I'll talk about Jordan Poole first. Ooh, I wasn't a fan during the season. Just the hype. I didn't see it. The reason I got him at high level now is maybe because when he does get hot, he does play at that elite level. It's not consistent enough, but he when he does get, say when he gets hot, he takes over.
Yeah.
He could shoot anywhere. We saw that in the playoffs, in the finals against Boston. I know we've had conversations off camera about him before. I know you've been pretty high on him for the last few years. Um, it's just it might have been the media for me. I wasn't very high on him last year. He had a good stretch, in my opinion. I don't think he just was good the entire. He was good the whole year, but he had that one good stretch that I think shot him up. Because I know we had discussions before, and I've seen him lately about. I think it was Desmond Bain, Jordan Poole, Tyler Hill, and Tyrese Maxey.
Yep.
Yeah, so I've seen that a lot lately. And it's hard to do because some start, some come off the bench, some play bigger roles, but that's a good four. I think people try to put together to pick. Yeah, I think the high level is just that microwave. That's the only reason I got him up there.
Yeah, I understand, and kind of like I said, what kept him at tier 4 for me was just the other stuff. Whenever he's not hot, there's not much that he really provides.
Yeah.
We kind of saw that. There was a stretch in that final series where he wasn't shooting the ball well, and Steve Kerr took him out for an extended period of time. He put Damian Lee on the floor in his place and let him run with kind of the second unit where Jordan Poole kind of steps in. And Damian Lee honestly held his own in those minutes better than Jordan Poole was. His plus minus was better, and his overall impact on the floor was better. Obviously, if Jordan Poole is making his shots, though, he's elite.
I say that. I'm not putting him with Jordan Clarkson, but when he was in with the second unit, like against other teams, is when he kind of thrived a lot more. I mean, he could do it against the starters, but against the second unit is when he really he really could show how how good he was. I guess the Tyler Hero thing, kind of like a backup, even though they did let him start a lot. But yeah, that's all I got about that.
Right. There's one more player here on my tier 3 that I wanted to discuss before we move on, and that's RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett is here at tier 3 for me. Okay. This tier is labeled the All-Star caliber tier for me. I think RJ Barrett will be an All-Star next season. Okay. I think he will be. I think he'll be the first option on that New York Knicks team. I think that's a Knicks team that could potentially compete for a playoff spot. So therefore, I think RJ Barrett will be in prime position to, make that jump. He made a jump this past season. Okay. The one thing about RJ Barrett, if you don't know about him, he was dead last in the NBA at finishing at the rim this past season.
Really?
His field goal percentage at the rim was below 40%. He's been a guy who's been considered ambidextrous. He's self-proclaimed ambidextrous. But whenever he tries to go up with his left hand, it's either his non-dominant hand. I don't even know at this point if it's his left hand or it's his right hand. But he tries to do it against bigger defenders, and it doesn't really ever work. I've gone back and I've watched some film on his finishing. Mm-hmm. His finishing would have to get better for him to step up to an all-star caliber tier for me. But I think it will. I think that coaching staff will work with him, and I think he'll be something that he'll be able to tweak pretty easily. Because outside of that, he's a really good player. He's a really good shot creator. He can play make. And I think having Jalen Brunson alongside him now kind of takes a little bit of that weight off his shoulders. And who knows?
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell could be there too with him at some point. So.
Yeah, I kind of figured Jalen Brunson would take the number one option role. I think RJ should keep it, but I know they paid Jalen Brunson $100 million.
Right.
And seeing kind of how he thrived, like how well he played with Luka out in the playoffs those first few games. Mm-hmm. It might be just because it's New York, but I didn't watch him a whole lot last year, not as much as the year before and earlier in the season.
Right.
But if he does take that, play at the All-Star level, I could have them in the competing for a play-in spot. I don't know if I could do it in the I guess the first 6, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So the guaranteed spot. Right. I think they'd be a fun team to watch. I really don't want them to. If they trade for Donovan Mitchell, yeah, it could really be good for them. I don't think it'd boost them that much, in my opinion. I could be wrong, right. But I kind of want them to keep the young players they have, especially the ones rumored in the trade package for Donovan Mitchell.
Right.
I think other than that, that's all I got to talk about. That's the only players I think I had to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring that up because I played with the idea of keeping RJ Barrett at tier 4, but he's a guy I believe in.
I've heard
He's
he.
he's a guy that I just simply believe in.
I've heard that he's got to take that leadership level kind of up some. I guess
He's young.
yeah. Especially if Julius Randle takes not another step back. But, he didn't play where he was expected to play
Right.
this past year. So I really think he could make that All Star jump. Especially if depends on where they get seated at, and during the All Star break.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. That's all I've got to talk about for tier 3. Your tier 2 is going to be way more populated than mine. I can go ahead and guarantee it. So give me your tier
I
2, Jacob.
I got 3 players in tier 2.
Really?
Yeah.
What is your tier 1 then?
I got 4.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
My tier 1 is like the All NBA, like the definitely All Star, All NBA first team type, I guess.
Yeah.
And my tier 2 is like the sub All Star or like right at All Star.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I do wish I would have changed something though, because I was debating it. I'll get to it. My tier 2, I have Bradley Beal, C.J. McCollum, and Anthony Edwards.
Interesting.
Anthony Edwards was hard to put there. I'm not gonna lie, because he's obviously a high level starter, important to the Wolves. Maybe the first option or first, second. Um, I think he's like a key part to that team. What they're trying to do, which I mean is obvious, but I think he's gonna take that jump next year to All Star level.
Okay.
So he's gotten better every year, and I think now that with Rudy Gobert there, I want to see how that plays out defensively. They'll be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But with just him and Cat kind of on the inside presence, and his playmaking's getting better, I really think he can make that jump. It was like he was hard for me to put there. He was like at the bottom of the tier, so that's like the only one I'll have that highlight right there.
Yeah.
You could arguably put him at the tier below it.
Yeah. I had Anthony Edwards at tier 3.
Mm-hmm.
I played with him in tier 2 too, though.
Yeah.
This is my belief on Anthony Edwards. I think that going into this next season, I think Karl Anthony Towns is still the number 1 option on that team. I think at this point he is, but I think in the next season or two it will be Anthony Edwards who is their undisputed number 1 option.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think that could even be pushed along with Karl Anthony Towns potentially being moved somewhere, especially if they don't see the success that they hope they do with this trade. I think I say all that to say Anthony Edwards will be the number 1 guy at some point. He will be.
At some point. I don't think they'd trade.
Not right now, but he will be.
I don't think they'd trade Cat. I think they'd trade Rudy before Cat. That's just me.
Really?
Yeah. It might be. It might be what we've talked about before. I think we did the head-to-head with those two before, the offensive and defensive part of it.
Yeah.
That might be it. Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see over the next few years how that turns out. I think we'll see how that trade ends up this year.
Yeah. My tier 2, I only have 2 players here.
Okay.
I have Bradley Beal and I have Donovan Mitchell here. And my tier 2 I labeled as the all NBA caliber players. Bradley Beal is here. Bradley Beal is on your tier 2 as well. And you said that you highlighted this tier as an all-star level tier?
Like the all-star kind of it's like not the All NBA first team, but like kind of second, third. But yeah, All Star. Yeah.
Okay.
My first tier is basically like normally who you could see at that All NBA first team. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I asked that because I flirted with Bradley Beal at tier 1. I did.
I thought about it.
He's a 30-point scorer at this point. When he's healthy, he's a 30-point scorer. But what knocks him is he plays for the Washington Wizards. That's really what it is.
I was about to say
There's
that too.
no sugarcoat it. He plays for a bad team.
Mm-hmm.
He's an elite scorer though, and we've seen him be an all-star starter whenever he's averaging 30 points at that clip. So he's an all-NBA player for me. If he puts up those numbers, regardless of his team success, he'll at least be an all-NBA third-team player.
Yeah, I can see that. It's just the Wizards. That's the only thing. I don't know. That team, they might surprise some people this year, maybe.
I don't think so. I really don't think so. Hey, they are in Donovan Mitchell trade talks.
I saw that. I saw that. They might be in a play-in spot. Like the 7 to 10, the 7 to 10, maybe. Like I said, we just got to see if he's fully healthy. I don't know. I really don't.
I also have Donovan Mitchell here, and I kind of just want to spend a brief minute on Donovan Mitchell. I think tier 2 is the perfect spot for him at this point. He's a microwave also.
Yeah.
But my thing with him is in the playoffs, he can be a detriment in the playoffs. Whenever he's not making his shots, it's kind of like what we said about Jordan Poole and Tyler Hero, maybe to a lesser extent, but the makeup of Donovan Mitchell, we've talked about it on this show. He's a 6'1" shooting guard.
Yeah.
That doesn't bode well on the floor, regardless of who's around you. That's part of the reason why I have Colin Sexton. I don't regard him as highly because he's a 6-foot shooting guard. He's not a point guard. He's a shooting guard.
Okay.
Donovan Mitchell, just the makeup of him as a player kind of holds him back because he would have to perform at such an elite level on a good team to be tier 1 for me.
Yeah.
That's different for a guy like I'm going to go ahead and say it, Devin Booker, who is probably on your top tier as he is on mine, or a guy who's not on this list who I consider to be a shooting guard, Paul George. Okay. He may not have the same level of production as Donovan Mitchell. He may not be, I don't even know how to put it. His production may not be the same. That's the best way to say it. But
yeah, he was in my tier 1. I was debating tier 2
because Paul George is 6'8" and he clamps on the defensive end. He's elevated so much higher over Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah,
this is what it is.
I can see that. I went back and forth. My tier 1 is he was towards the, really can't say middle or bottom, but I went back and forth on him too. I really did.
Tier 1. And you said you had 4 people on tier 1.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and get my 1 player out of the way before we close with your 4. Devin Booker is the only player on my tier 1. He is. He's the best shooting guard in the league. He was first team All-NBA. Shooting guard it's not, like we said at the start of the show, it's not as top heavy. It's really not.
Right.
Devin Booker is on a championship contending team now. He puts up the numbers, and usually we can maybe exclude that Maverick series, but usually he excels in the playoffs as well.
He has a good
track record so far.
I can see that. Now, there was a player in my first tier that I kind of had. I went back and forth like Donovan Mitchell. Went back and forth with the second tier.
Okay.
I had Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell. I had Zach LaVine in tier 1.
Really?
I went back and forth, and I had James Harden. Now, the Zach LaVine one was kind of tough for me to put. I know he did. I don't know. I guess just when he's healthy, I don't know. He's one I kind of went back and forth. James Harden. Where'd you have him on your list again?
I had James Harden at the top of tier 3. All-star caliber players.
Yeah, so with the James Harden one, I can see that. He's not the Houston James Harden, the pre-hamstring injury Brooklyn James Harden, but in Philly he doesn't have to be that.
You're right.
So obviously with we'll say the hamstring, I really think he could still be All-NBA. I think if we have a bounce back year, maybe in the MVP conversation, not hot, like maybe top 5, maybe. Like I said, I don't think it'll be Houston Harden, but beginning the Brooklyn Harden that way, I think he was in the MVP conversation before he got hurt.
He was.
So I think he'd have that bounce back, especially if he addresses the hamstring. And with Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and as much as I hate to say it, Tobias Harris, that it can thrive. His playmaking really can show, especially now. And PJ Tucker, I believe, is the other going to be our fifth starter. So the corner three is that connection there. We saw what James and Joel did last year, pick and roll wise. Like I said, the playoffs, I can see that, especially Miami, in his previous playoff struggles. But I still think he's at that level. It might just be the hamstring that a lot of people. He did take a step back, but that's it. Like I think if he addresses that, he'll be fine. I think he'll still be at the all NBA level.
That's a great way to close it out. For me, I don't even like that James Harden was on this list because he's a point guard. Technically, he's going to be the point guard.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I kind of went ahead and just put him up top because even at the point guard, I still probably put him close to the top. That's just me. But
hey, you do you. That's not really a campaign that I'll be behind. But,
yeah, I'm on the bounce back train, I guess, for him.
Okay.
So
I respect it. I respect that. Those are our shooting guard tiers. 2/5 of the way done at this point.
yeah.
We'll have the small forwards next week. Jacob, do you want to say anything before we wrap this one up?
That's all I got. Not much going on. It's off season or left in the off season, I guess.
We're getting close, y'all. We're getting closer to the season.
Yeah, about 9 more weeks, I think. Not too far.
Counting down the days.
Right.
Well, all right. If nothing else, we'll see y'all next week. Peace out.
See y'all.